Judy, maybe the fundamental question is, what is the NDP, the federal NDP, for?
Well, that's a very good question, I think it's so that we don't get into the kind of dysfunctional two-party system that they have in the United States, which has deteriorated into basically throwing rocks and, in the U.S., who knows, some days throwing bombs at each other, and what Parliament has deteriorated into in the last year, which is just throwing rocks, just attack dogs on both sides, and nothing gets done. By having other parties, not having a two-party system, the other parties can stand up to stop that kind of dynamic. Most of the improvements that we've seen in our social programs has come from NDP pressure.
But I guess the question, Judy, is that enough? Is the goal to influence policy, to shape the discourse, to help bring about things like dental care, like pharmacare, or is the goal to win power and to govern?
You say that as an either or. I don't think it's an either or. I really don't. I think that what we need is a social democratic party that, yes, is interested in power, but isn't willing to give up its ideas and principles for power, because it understands that you have to change capitalism. I mean, I personally think you have to overthrow capitalism, but I'm not requiring that from the NDP. But you have to fundamentally change capitalism. And right now, we're in such a mess that you have to do it the way FDR did it, really a big effort to change the way the capitalism is working, because it's not working for the majority of people at all anymore.
But Judy, you're saying it's not working for the vast majority of people. We hear young people lamenting the fact that they can't really afford to live. They can't afford to live in our cities. They're never going to own a home. There's a lot of distress out there. And yet, a lot of these young people are not going to the NDP.
Why would they?
But the NDP doesn't seem to be providing them with a vision, a kind of a plan for the future. And Pierre Poilievre, even though he didn't win the election, but he seemed to galvanize a lot of young people in this country who see some possibility in the Conservative Party.
Absolutely, because he's talking about how bad things are for people, and the NDP's not talking about that. The NDP, for example, will say we have to tax the rich as sort of the last point in 12 points of policy. If I was running that campaign, I would say the reason for the housing crisis is the massive profits of private capital, that all they care about is making money. They don't care about providing housing. So, number one, we have a massive wealth tax, and that is what we run the campaign on. Anybody making over this amount of money, we tax them 50%. Any housing that's empty, I'm sitting here looking at a condo that has half of the apartments have been empty for a couple of years now. The government should give the power, I don't know how you can do that, but give the power to take over those housing and put people in them. What we need is transformational proposals. Poilievre doesn't have transformational proposals, but he's good at identifying what the problem is and saying he's going to fix it, even though he's not going to fix it, he's going to make it worse. But the NDP does have ideas about how to fix it. They just don't run on those ideas. They try to be a little better than the Liberals. That's all they've been doing for the last, 10 years anyway, maybe more than that. And that's not going to work, because now we need fundamental change. It should be the time that a left-wing party can run with that and really get a lot of support, but they're not doing it.
Is the NDP still the party of Labour? And if not, what does it need to do in order to become that?
The NDP doesn't identify itself anymore as the party of Labour, and I'm not sure if it should be. I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. But I think that's part of the discussion. And that's the other issue. If the NDP is the party of Labour, the Labour movement has not been very active in this campaign. We hardly ever see union leaders in the media at all anymore. In previous election campaigns, they would be out in the streets. And they are, the CLC's organizing, but they're mostly organizing online, as far as I can see. And so the labor movement is not what it used to be. It doesn't play as big a role as it used to. And it's also not organizing. A lot of workers who are self-employed or gig workers are not organized in the labor movement. Except for Unifor, there doesn't seem to be a lot of interest in organizing them. I think what we need is a cross-issue movement now that brings everybody together to fight for human rights and democracy, because that's what's at stake here.
You've been listening to a clip of In Bed with the Elephant with me, your host, Adrian Harewood. Be sure to check out the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. And please be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast and write a review. We love hearing from you.